Okay, so let's do some example where we are multiplying our radicals here. Example 2a, we're going to simplify, but we have to multiply our radicals in our problem. Our problem here, we'll do a square root for now. The square root of 45 x to the 5th, y to the 3rd, times the square root of 35 xy to the 4th. Now we have two ways we can go about this problem. I could simplify each radical first and then multiply, or I could multiply everything underneath and then simplify. And that's usually what I like to, I usually like to do the first method, because if I multiplied everything now, I'd have to take 45 times 35, and that's a pretty big pain. So instead, let's simplify each radical. The square root of 45 isn't a nice number, but 45 is 9 times 5, and the square root of 9 is 3. That 5 is going to be stuck under the square root. But then if I look at the x to the 5th, keep in mind that this is the square root, it's the second root here. What multiple of 2 goes into 5? Well, 4. 4 is the largest multiple. X to the 4th times x gives me x to the 5th. Now the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. That comes out front, leaving me an x underneath. And that's not showing up that great. We'll try this. There we go. And then that y, I have a y cubed here. And y cubed is y squared times y. The square root of y squared we can do, and bring a y out in front. We have this y stuck underneath. So this simplified is 3x squared y times the square root of 5xy. Let's simplify over here. The square root of 35 xy to the 4th. Well, let's look at my power table. Are there any perfect squares that go into 35? Any of these numbers? None of these go into 35. So I guess really I can't even simplify that. X, can't do anything with, but y to the 4th is y squared. The square root of y to the 4th is y squared. And we said we couldn't simplify anything else here. So that 35 and the x are stuck underneath the radical. Alright, now I have my radicals simplified. Now, since they're both square roots, I can multiply what's underneath. So multiply what's out front, multiply what's underneath. And when we do that, that gives me 3x squared y to the 3rd power times the square root of 35 times 5 is 175 x squared times y. And again, I can simplify a little bit more here. So 175 is 25 times 7. The square root of 25 is 5. We'll take that 5 times the 3 that's already here to get 15 out front. The square root of x squared is x. X times the x squared that's already here gives me x cubed out front. That y, I can't do anything with. But I have this y cubed that's out front. So all together out front, after we do all of our simplifying, I get 15 x cubed y cubed times the square root of 7, square root of the x squared, Can't square root that y. We've done all of our simplifying. Now we need to look back and think about absolute value here. I had an even root because it was the square root. My rule is if I have an even root and even power underneath, then I need the absolute value. And over here I have an even root, but odd powers underneath. Okay? Even root, odd power with the x, even power with the y. So if I was just looking at this radical, I would need the absolute value there for the y. But because I have an odd power in y over in my other radical, no absolute value. So I'm just saying here, no absolute value since circled powers above. So my final answer is 15x cubed y cubed times the square root of 7y.